Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Bumper here. Hope you're doing okay. Thanks for tuning in. So today I'm going to do a video on one of my favourite subgenres of horror, or actually my favourite subgenre of horror, the French extreme movies. Okay, so the French are known for giving us some absolutely brutal horror movies from the late 1990s to the early noughties. These movies are absolutely fantastic. I mean, no horror buff really should not see these films. They're my favourite movies, or some of my favourite movies, and yeah, I'm just desperate to talk about them and get them out in the stratosphere. Okay, so it's not going to be a deeply educational video. I'm not going to be delving into the history of French horror. I'm not that knowledgeable, you know, I just know about the movies that I like. I got my laptop here, so if you see me looking down a little bit, I do apologise, but I just can't remember it all off the cuff, and I wouldn't want to miss out on anything. Okay, so I mean, French horror, you know, there's some earlier popular films like the 1928 movie, The Fall of the House of Usher, which is based on an Edgar Allan Poe story. That's 1928. Then you can go to 1955, where there's a famous French horror, Les Diaboliques. That's been a Criterion release. Then there's Eyes Without a Face, which is one of the most famous ones and one of the most famous costume designs with the freaky mask. That was made in 1960. And then in 1982, Jean Rollin, who's like the seen as the pinnacle of the vampire horror directors from France, he done a popular movie called The Living Dead Girl. That's just to give you a bit of a background before people say that you know, I've got no prior knowledge to the 90s. I haven't got a lot, but those are just the main titles. Okay, so then moving into what I call my era of French cinema, French horror cinema. Okay, you'll probably be you'll probably be familiar with a few directors. Okay, the main one you'll probably be familiar with is a chap called Gaspar Noe. Now, a lot of people think Gaspar Noe is French. He's not. He's Argentinian, but he's always lived in France and he's always done his work. You know, well, not always done his work in French language. He has done English language films as well, but the majority of his stuff is French. He's most famous for the movie Irreversible, which is a 2007 title, which we'll touch upon a little bit later when we go through my collection. He's also done an amazing film called I Must Stand Alone, which is his first movie from, I think, 1998. Real messed up movie. I don't own it. I would like to get it, but you know, that is one not for the faint-hearted. That's a psychodrama that you know, is great, but you may only want to ever watch it once. He also done End of the Void in 2009, which I haven't actually seen, so I can't comment too much on that one. He done an erotic drama called Love in 2015. Again, I haven't seen that. And he also done Climax in 2018, which is a more popular movie. It had an Arrow release, so we'll touch upon that one again when we go through the collection. He also done a film called Vortex in 2021, which stars the legendary Dario Argento. Okay, and then there's Julian Maury and Alexandre Bustillo. So they direct movies together. They're a team of directors, usually just go by their surnames, Maury and Bustillo. Okay, they've done some really good films. Inside being the main one, that was in 2007. Again, we're going to touch on that when we come to my collection. We've also got Livid. Again, we'll touch on that one when it comes to my collection. They did a movie called Among the Living in 2014, which I don't think has had a Blu-ray release, so I don't own that one, even though I have seen it. And they also did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel, Leatherface, in 2017. That wasn't very well received, to be honest, but you know, I was really expecting quite a lot from them, considering their reputation. They were also going to direct Hellraiser and a Halloween sequel, but they just ended up leaving the projects. Recently they did Candisha, which is a 2020 title, which is on Shudder. That's really good. That's worth a watch. And they've also done the recent found footage underwater movie, The Deep House, 2021. I wasn't totally bowled over with that film, but it's got beautiful cinematography. You know, it's shot under the water. There's a house in a lake under the water which they go and visit, and yeah, you know, it's full of all sorts of ghouls and ghastly ghosts. Anyway, and then after that, then we probably got my favourite French director and probably the most popular in Hollywood. That's Alexandre Aja. Okay, so he started off with Haute Tension in 2003. We'll touch upon that when we come to my collection. That's one of my favourite movies. He then made the jump to Hollywood, where he done The Hills Have Eyes remake in 2006, which is a fantastic remake, probably the best of all the remakes. And then he done Mirrors in 2008 with Kiefer Sutherland. That was pretty decent, I thought. He done Piranha 3D in 2010 with Kelly Brook. He done Horns in 2013 with Daniel Radcliffe. That's a really good surreal comedy horror type movie. He done The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, which is one of his lesser known titles. And then he also done Crawl in 2019, which was amazing. Alligator film, brilliant film. And he also returned to his French roots then in 2021 for Netflix, where he done the movie Oxygen, which is good. Okay, so before we get into my collection of movies, I just want to give some mentions to some films, because people will watch this and they'll be like, oh, you forgot this, you forgot that. But, you know, I am aware of lots of these movies, so I'll just reel off a list here. And if you can get your hands on any of these, they're all worth checking out. So there's a movie called High Lane from 2009. There's a movie called The Horde, a zombie movie from 2009. There's a movie called Shaitan, which translates to the word Satan. That's how it stars Vincent Cassel, and that's that's from 2006. There's the one I mentioned for Maury and Bustillo, Among the Living, from 2014. There's Candisha that I mentioned from 2020. There's The Pack. I think The Pack is from about 2006. This is a really hard movie to get hold of. I've never seen it anywhere available. I luckily enough saw it at a film festival. I'd love to see that movie again, so if you know anywhere I can watch that, then let me know in the comments below. Then there's Night Fair from 2015, which is a movie that mixes English and French language. It's about kids who get a taxi ride and they don't pay the fare, they do a runner. And, you know, the taxi driver hunts him down. The guy who stars in that used to be an MMA fighter. There's a scene when he goes to a house party and just tears up all these guys with samurai swords and whatever else. It's just breathtaking. And then we got The Deep House, which is one that I was talking about earlier as well, which you should be able to find now because it's pretty new. And, yeah, it's okay. All right, so now I'm going to move on to my physical media collection of French movies. In my eyes, these are the best ones, okay? So, first of all, then we'll go with the Gaspar Noe titles. So the first one we got here is Climax, okay? So, this has been released by Arrow. It's French language. It's about a bunch of kids at a party. Someone spikes the punch with LSD, and then they're just in for a crazy night of hallucinogenics. Just, what, is it real, is it not? Yeah, it's really messed up. It's not the best film in the world, probably the worst out of all the ones I own, but yeah, it's still pretty good. So yeah, if you want to check that out, Climax. Alright, and Gaspar Noe's, well, I don't know if I should call it a classic really, but this is the powerhouse release of Irreversible. Now this film, I know a lot of people say this film is really heavy. I'm pretty much desensitized to horror and these French horror, so I don't think this movie is as bad as people make out. There's two major scenes, okay? The movie plays backwards, and that's where the title of Irreversible comes from. It's about a guy, Vincent Cassel, his girlfriend Monica Bellucci is raped, and this starts at the end and goes back to the beginning. So at the beginning, you're in a nightclub and Vincent Cassel is looking for revenge on the guy that raped his girlfriend. The nightclub is not your normal nightclub. It's a bondage, S&M, homosexual, heterosexual, anything goes sort of thing. So as he's storming the floors looking for this person, you see all sorts of weird psycho-erotic stuff. And then when he does get to where he needs to be, there's a scene in this where he gets a fire extinguisher and he smashes a guy's face in, and I don't know what it is about this scene, but it's so visceral and so brutal, some people can't stomach it. I think it's amazing, you know, I watch it on repeat. It's probably one of the best kills I've ever seen in cinema history, but it does really put a lot of people off. It turns the stomach. And then there's a prolonged rape scene then halfway through. It goes on for ages. It's really hard to watch. It's not like I Spit on Your Grave where it's over stylized. It's really, it happens in a subway, and it really just, it just lingers for too long. It's brilliantly acted by Monica Bellucci. Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel were actually in a relationship during the filming of this movie, so their sex scenes, not the rape scene obviously, but I've heard rumour that their sex scenes were actually real. You don't see anything pornographic, but apparently they were really having sex, so this is a powerhouse release. This is limited edition, but you can get it now for $18.99 on Amazon, and they've only made 10,000. You get the usual crack, you get the Blu-ray, the book, and a poster. So if you haven't seen this film, it's well worth checking out. Okay, then we got a couple of others here. Okay, the first one we'll talk about is Livid. So this is by Maury and Bustillo again. This is like a modern day vampire movie with with ingredients taken from films like Get Out, not Get Out, my apologies, Don't Breathe. These people break into a house because they think the occupant is not out but is old and in bed and can't do anything, and the year is full of riches, jewellery and stuff. And then they just end up in a nightmare. So this is a really good film. If you can get your hands on it, this is a Blu-ray, a UK one. I don't think this has had a US release, but it's a good film. So that's Livid. Check it out if you can. Okay, then we got this other one. This is called Them. Now this is the movie that The Strangers is based on. This is one of the early home invasion movies. This is based on a true story. It's only 70 minutes long, and it's about a couple who are in a house, and they just get menaced by these hooded figures. They end up getting chased into their home, down into the sewers, and it's pretty gut-wrenching. It's not violent, but it plays on your mind a bit. And at 70 odd minutes, it doesn't outstay its welcome. So if you get a chance to see this movie, I strongly recommend you check it out. Them. The French translation is Ils, I-L-S, so you might see it advertised under that somewhere. Alright, then we're going to talk about this director, Julia Ducournau. I'm probably butchered that name. So this film is Raw. Okay, now this is a brilliant coming-of-age horror. This is about a girl who's in college and she slowly starts to realise that she's from a family of cannibals. This director went on to direct Titane, which we'll talk about at the end of the video, because I don't own Titane yet because it hasn't had the UK release, but that's a really messed up film as well. This movie is probably a bit easier to watch. The storyline's a bit more linear. You know what's going on, even though what's going on is pretty crazy. There's some brilliant scenes in this, like when there's a scene with her sister in the kitchen, and she just chops her sister's finger off, and she starts eating it, and the sister's like, "What are you doing? I need to sew that back on." It's just hysterical, and things get a little bit messy, like for one of her friends and things. It's a really good film. It's got comedy, it's heartfelt, but it's got its horror in it as well. I can't recommend this strongly enough. This is Raw. Check it out. Okay, now I kept these 4 movies for last because these 4 movies are my favourite movies of all time. Definitely in this subgenre, okay? I urge any horror fan out there or any movie fan, just check these out. Don't let the word extreme throw you off, okay? These movies are not extreme in the sense that a Serbian film is extreme, or Trauma is extreme, or Salo is extreme. These movies are just classed as extreme because they're insanely gory. But, there's no child mutilation or any paedophilic vibes or nothing like that in these films. They just play out like super gory horror films. So the first one we'll talk about is Inside, okay? Now this movie is fantastic. So this is the first one directed by Maury and Bustillo, and still their best. Again, the running time is really short. It's kind of like a home invasion thriller. It's one location, apart from maybe 5 minutes at the start where she's at the hospital. It's about a lady who's pregnant on Christmas Eve. She's going to go and be induced on Christmas Day, so she's spending her last night at home before she has her baby, and then a stranger turns up out of nowhere and is basically trying to rip her baby out of her belly. I don't know how else to explain it. It's a bit of a cat and mouse thriller, but the violence, oh my god, is so visceral, it's so real. None of it's forced, none of it's over stylized or violent for the reason of being violent. These people act how you would act if you were in this situation, but it's just they push it to the absolute limits. The final scene on this, when the camera pans up, it's just breathtaking. There's a scene where she gets the aerosol and the light down, sprays it and burns on the face of the person. It's just fantastic to see. There's a lot of stuff going on with scissors, which is just vile. You really need to see this. Okay, I had to order this from abroad on Amazon. It cost me like 30 quid, and it's only a Blu-ray, but it's it's so worth checking it. I watch this all the time. So it's called Inside. This is a Spanish version, Al Interior. But you know, you just look for the movie Inside and you will find it just absolutely amazing. Okay, then the next one I'm going to talk about is the Alex Aja movie. My one is called Switchblade Romance because this is a UK release by Magnet. But the proper name for the film is Haute Tension, which translates to high tension. Okay, so that's exactly what this movie is. It's another cat and mouse movie. It's about a girl who's being chased by a serial killer. He's already butchered her family and now he's going after the girl. There's a huge twist to this about the hour mark. A lot of people were put off by it. A lot of people couldn't get their heads around how the twist worked. I couldn't get my head around it, okay? What you've got to realise is that you're seeing the fractured storytelling of a psychopath. So, you know, you can't take what they're saying for granted. The twist does work when you look at it like that. There's more controversy to this film because Alex Aja was accused of copying this from an author. I can't think of the author's name now. It wasn't Clive Barker. But there's a TV movie called, I think it's called Intense, or something like that, and it does have a similar storyline, so I can see why Alex Aja was accused of stealing this idea. But you know, he swears he didn't, and you know, this movie is so amazing. I don't really care where the idea came from. This is just another one you just have to see. So Switchblade Romance, High Tension or Haute Tension, search that up and get this movie. Awesome. Okay, then these last two are my absolute favourites. Okay, now the first one I'm going to talk about, you probably think I was going to talk about last because most people see this as the pinnacle of French horror. For me, I prefer the other one. But this movie is Martyrs, okay? So Martyrs has had an American remake, which I actually thought was okay, but was not as good as the original. It's directed by Pascal Laughier. It follows a girl who was abused as a youngster, but she managed to escape her captors. And then she goes on to live in some sort of like orphanage, sort of, you know, mental health issues kind of place for children. She meets a friend, Anna, so it's Anna and Lucy. And then one day, when she's a little bit older, maybe 17, 18, she stumbles across a newspaper article where she sees the people who abused her. And then she goes to get her revenge. What happens from there is just absolutely crazy. There's some shotgun kills in this film early on, and they are the best shotgun kills I ever seen. Like I was saying about the other movies, you know, the violence is not forced. It's just really visceral, and it's so brutal. It's a film of two halves, really. The second half goes more into torture porn, and it's not quite as bloody, but it is way more emotional and can prey on your psyche a lot heavier. You've got to be warned with this film. You will come out of it a different person. It's a fantastic movie. I laud this everywhere I go, and I know a lot of horror fans do. So this is Martyrs. You have to put this to the top of your watch list, okay? So check it out. And then the final one I'm going to talk about, this is my ultimate favourite movie, French movie. It's by Xavier Gens, and it is Frontiers, okay? So this plays out like a European Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A group of kids are on the run from France after going on a riot, and they stop at a halfway house between France and Holland because they're on their way to Amsterdam, and they end up in the clutches of a psycho neo-Nazi family. You've got a dinner scene that's reminiscent of the dinner scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You've got the older leader who's like this wannabe Hitler. Okay, and it just gets really, really brutal. You've got everything in this. Mutant children, you know, amazing kills. You know, the final girl in this, what she must have gone through. By the end, she's got her head shaved off. She's covered in blood. You know, you think Mia had it bad at the end of Evil Dead. This woman goes through something even worse. This movie is absolutely amazing. I cannot promote this film enough. A lot of people haven't heard of it. They haven't watched it. You cannot be put off by subtitles. You know, you need to see this. You need to get the uncut version. Like I said, it is a European version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, wet your whistle thinking about that way. It is pretty extreme, but you know, it is just absolutely amazing. The acting is superb. Everything about it is superb. Okay, so this is my number one. So listen to Bumper now when he tells you, go out and check this movie out. You will not regret it. And then just before we wrap it up, I just want to give a couple of shouts out for some new modern French horror movies that I haven't been able to get in my collection yet, but are worth checking out. So there's one on Netflix. It's called The Swarm. It's about a lady who keeps a a locust farm. I think it's locusts or cockroach farm. And yeah, it's not doing very well. And these cockroaches somehow get a taste for human blood. And they love it, and you can imagine where the rest of it goes. So there's a bit of comedy in it, but a bit of drama, but it's really good. Then the second one is Ravenous. So this is a modern day zombie outbreak type movie that's worth checking out. I think that might be on Netflix. I could be wrong though. But you should be able to get your hands on that. That's Ravenous. Then the last one is from the director of Raw. This film won the Palme d'Or. I'm sure you heard of it. It's called Titane. It's amazing, okay? It's about a young girl who's in a car accident. She has a metal plate put in her head, and as she grows up, you know, her family don't abuse her or anything, but she just can't. She can't build relationships. She doesn't connect with anyone. The only thing she connects with is cars. She's at these car shows, you know, erotically dancing on the bonnet. She's got a fan. She's got a little bit of, you know, she's a bit ghetto fabulous. Like locals know her. They're asking for her autograph and stuff. But, you know, she is harbouring some dark secrets and some dark urges. Again, this is a film of two halves, okay? Starting like a bit of a serial killer murder thriller. She goes on the run. And then the second half is more psychodrama. It's got emotion. It will lift you up and then it'll shoot you straight back down. So if you haven't seen that movie, that's Titane, and you need to check that out as well. Okay, so I've been Bumper. You know, I'm really passionate about French cinema and movies I've talked about here. If you have any questions at all, chuck them in the comments below. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.